Today, we're tackling one of the absolute heaviest hitters on the entire syllabus, return on investment, and specifically, the DuPont method. Now, I know this topic can cause a ton of stress. It can feel totally overwhelming when you're buried deep in your study materials, but I want to assure you right now, I've helped countless students get through this exact material, and we are going to master this together today. You've totally got this.
So I want to start things off by asking you a really direct question. If I tell you a division made $1 million in profit, is that good? Take a second. Really think about it. What's your gut reaction? Your immediate thought is probably, well, yeah, $1 million is a ton of money. But as future CMAs, I want to challenge that assumption right out of the gate.
To help lower that exam prep stress, here's a quick roadmap of what we're covering today. 1. Why ROI matters. 2. The DuPont breakdown. 3. Defining invested capital. 4. The sub-optimization trap. And 5. How to master your exam strategy.
All right, let's jump right into Section 1, Why ROI Matters.
Let's go back and answer that opening question about our $1 million. Here's the truth of it. You actually can't answer whether $1 million in profit is good until you know exactly how much that division used to get it. Think of assets as the tools the company gives a manager to do their job, right? If a division uses just $5 million in assets to generate that $1 million in profit, they are absolute stars. I mean, that is incredible efficiency. But if they needed $100 million in assets just to scrape together that exact same $1 million in profit, well, suddenly they're in big trouble. The raw profit number all by itself, it tells us almost nothing about actual performance.
And that brings us to return on investment, or ROI. This is literally the king of performance metrics. It's the most common measure used to evaluate the performance of what we call an investment center. Now, for the CMA exam, you really need to know that an investment center is a unique beast. Unlike a simple cost center or a profit center, an investment center manager is held responsible for both the profits they bring in and the assets they use to generate those profits. ROI is essentially the primary tool we use to grade exactly how efficiently that manager is using the tools the company handed them.
Moving right along to Section 2, the DuPont breakdown. Now, simple ROI calculations will for sure show up on your test, but examiners, they want to see how deep your knowledge really goes. So, you are highly likely to be tested on the DuPont method. This takes the basic concept of ROI and splits it into two distinct strategic drivers: profitability and efficiency. So, the master formula is ROI equals profit margin multiplied by asset turnover. But as a CMA candidate, you've got to know the expanded version of this. It expands out to operating income divided by sales, which is your profit margin, multiplied by sales divided by average invested capital, and that's your asset turnover.
You know, what's really fascinating about this breakdown is why we actually do it. The DuPont formula does so much more than just spit out a number. It tells a story about the business. Think about it. If your company's overall ROI is low, management needs to know exactly why. The DuPont breakdown points you straight to the culprit. Is it a profitability issue because your costs are way too high, which is dragging down your profit margin? Or is it an efficiency issue, where you've got this super expensive equipment just sitting around idle, absolutely crushing your asset turnover? By splitting the formula up, managers and you as CMA candidates can pinpoint the exact root of the problem.
Let's hit Section 3, Defining Invested Capital.
Okay, I need you to pay super close attention here, because we are walking light into a major gotcha area. Examiners love to set traps for you on this. When you're calculating the denominator of our asset turnover, what exactly counts as invested capital? Usually, yeah, it's total assets, but questions will constantly try to confuse you with valuation methods. Let's look at net book value, or NBV. That's the cost of assets minus accumulated depreciation. So here's the absolutely crucial point. As assets get older, accumulated depreciation grows and the net book value goes down. Because that denominator is physically shrinking, the total ROI mathematically goes up. This makes a manager's ROI look artificially higher over time, even if they literally did nothing to improve their actual performance. Wild, right? On the flip side, gross book value uses the original cost. Now, this fixes that automated ROI increase from depreciation, but unfortunately, it totally ignores the physical reality of everyday asset wear and tear. So, I want to give you a golden pro tip for exam day to just cut right through all this confusion. Memorize the quote you see on the screen. Unless the question specifies otherwise, use average total assets. That means you take the beginning asset balance, add the ending asset balance, and divide the whole thing by 2. Seriously, write that down. If the examiners ever give you both balances, it is a massive, flashing neon sign that they want you to use the average.
All right, on to Section 4, the sub-optimization trap.
I'd say this is arguably the most important conceptual part of our entire ROI lesson today. ROI is super powerful, but it has a fatal flaw. Let's imagine a manager currently has a stellar ROI of 20%, and the company overall has a cost of capital of 10%. Now, suddenly, a brand new project opportunity comes along, and it offers a 15% ROI. From the company's perspective, they are thrilled. A 15% return easily beats their 10% cost of capital. It creates real value, so they absolutely want to jump on it. But put yourself in the manager's shoes for a second. If their end-of-year bonus is tied to maintaining their high ROI, they are going to reject this great project. Why? Because mixing a 15% project into their current 20% average is going to drag their personal average down.
This exact behavioral flaw is what we call sub-optimization. It happens when a manager does what's best for their own personal bonus or performance evaluation, but their action actually ends up hurting the company's overall financial health. When the manager's goals don't align with the company's goals, we say there's a lack of goal congruence. Examiners absolutely love testing this concept because it shows you actually understand the real-world behavioral impacts of these accounting metrics. And just as a quick side note here, this exact flaw is why companies will so often use a metric called residual income, or RI, as a backup, because it completely fixes this goal congruence issue.
Finally, Section 5, Master Your Exam Strategy.
Okay, we have covered a ton of ground today, so let's synthesize this into an actionable exam logic cheat sheet. On the exam, you're going to be given scenarios and asked how certain actions impact ROI. Let's walk through these drivers together. If a manager reduces expenses, the profit margin increases, turnover doesn't change, so overall ROI increases. Simple enough. What if they increase the sales price? Well, profit margin goes up, turnover usually goes up, so ROI increases. Now consider selling idle equipment. This actually doesn't change the profit margin at all, but because you're actively reducing your total assets, your asset turnover increases, which drives your overall ROI up. And finally, investing in new tech. Watch out for this one. This might actually decrease profit margin in the short term due to new depreciation expenses, and it definitely decreases asset turnover because you just added massive new assets to that denominator. So in the short term, investing in great new tech will actually decrease ROI. Understanding these levers is the absolute key to nailing those tricky scenario-based questions.
To sum up your attack plan for test day, I want you to keep these 3 tips in mind whenever you see an ROI question. 1. Check the components. If you're given sales, income, and assets, immediately jot down that DuPont formula. 2. Watch the dates. Remember our golden rule. Always use average assets if they provide beginning and end-of-year balances. And 3. Think strategically. Remember that managers evaluated on ROI will naturally try to improve it by increasing sales, cutting costs, or even selling off assets. You are doing fantastic. I know it's a lot of formulas to juggle, but at the end of the day, ROI represents the very heart of management accountability. You've got the logic down perfectly.
Before we wrap, I want to leave you with a bit of a provocative thought to really test your newly acquired knowledge. Picture this. You're sitting at your desk, a manager desperately needs new equipment, but they know buying it outright is going to hurt their ROI. So, if a manager decides to lease equipment instead of buying it, how would that specifically affect the asset turnover part of the ROI equation? Think about how leasing impacts the balance sheet compared to purchasing outright, and exactly how that changes the denominator of your turnover ratio. Ponder that as you continue your studies. Just keep practicing those calculations, trust in the structured approach we built together today, and you are absolutely going to crush the performance management section. Thanks so much for learning with me today.